This year's Needles Trophy International Offshore Powerboat Race is the penultimate round of the European Class 1 Driver Championship. It's organised by the Royal Motor Yacht Club and hosted by the Borough of Poole and Seatrek Electronics. The boats and teams here, or at least the majority of them, have been slugging it out around Europe since early May. But after those warmer climes, the major interest here is not so much in the championship itself, but in how the British teams will fare as they meet their continental rivals for the first time this season.
Welcome everyone, particularly all the visiting nations. This is the briefing. I would like to keep it brief, and I have some very important points that I want you to take notice of. The latest weather situation and the best that I am able to give you with all the inquiries my team have made, including myself, is the following. Gale warnings are in operation now. The weather forecast for tomorrow's racing is as follows. Westerly, force 6. Wave height, 4 to 6 feet. Metre and a half, 2 metres for those not on Imperial. I am concerned for everyone's safety, as is all our team. Therefore, for Class 1 and 2, please delete lap C. The course order for Class 1 and 2 will be A, B, B.
In 5 minutes, there's news briefing, followed by prelude. But it's time now for the shipping forecast issued by the Meteorological Office at 0505 on Sunday the 21st of August. And there are warnings of gales in Viking, Forties, Cromarty, Forth, Tyne, Dogger, Humber, Thames, Dover, Wight, Irish Sea, Malin, Hebrides, Faroe.
Behind each crew of 2 or 3 who actually go racing is a team of boat builders, engineers, administrators and drivers who actually bring the boats across the world to each race venue. By this time in the build-up to the event, they will be concentrating on the final running up of the high-performance engines, checking all the safety equipment, sorting out the navigation and setting up the boats with the right fuel load and propellers to cope with whatever the race day weather can throw at them. Clearly, much more goes into preparation than might appear obvious here. And for teams like John Davies, based near his home in Hampshire's Howes Way country, the job involves everything from the highly technical to the highly polished. We asked Steve Curtis what conditions will suit him and his catamaran best.
Well, really what suits his boat the best is like a 3 foot to a 2 foot chop. and we can run that at maximum speed. That's about 115 miles an hour on this boat. And in that sort of conditions, there shouldn't be any other boat that can keep with us.
Michael Frode has been racing his boat in the Scandinavian Championship this year. What success has he had?
We finished second in the two last races, and we have not been racing so much in Class 2, but we won the World Championship in 3-liter with a small boat.
Yes, because of course people in this country know you as well for your small boat racing as for your big boat. Why did you make the transition? Why did you go up into Class 2?
Well, I've been racing for 17 years now, so I think everyone wants to move up to the big class.
You mean you like the comfort?
Yes.
When Jean-Pierre Fruitier last raced in England, he was very successful in winning the Cas Torquay. But how and why has he changed things for this season?
Well, this year, when we have last year regards the results, we have seen that for Isotta Fraschini, we are the third place at the European Championship. That's why we have chosen Isotta. After for Cougar, Cougar is world champion for 7 years, and he won this year in Key West. So that's why we have chosen Cougar. And now, as regards the canopy, we have chosen canopies because it's the normal evolution of powerboats. And after what happened here in last year in Poole, we have to fight a lot to increase the security, and to increase the security we need canopies.
By now, all the crews will have their adrenaline running as they make their way out of Poole Harbour to the start of Bournemouth. There's Chris Allenby's Assegai with an onboard camera, and we hope to be receiving pictures from him later. We also have crews out on the course, as well as our eye in the sky. There's Chris Peters and John Davey in McCavity, number 55. There's Steve Curtis in Reporter. He's the current world champion, and he's joining the rest of the fleet of 35 Class 1, Class 2 boats in these last minutes before the 60-mile-per-hour rolling start. Let's go over now to our onboard camera on Assegai. That looks like Chris Allenby doing some last-minute adjustments. Let's hope it's nothing serious. And as we see the fleet come under the start boat's control, let's go over to John Walker in the helicopter.
Class 1 and 2 fleet are rolling off Bournemouth Pier, 10:30 in the morning. Sea conditions out here remarkably flat, bearing in mind the forecast that we've had. Forecast is anything up to 4-6, but out here it's flat as a fritter. And they're underway. We can see Michael Frode's Swedish entry over there on the far side. McCavity over on the shore side. Jean-Pierre Fruitier in Rocky. Curtis coming through cleanly, but the race is being led in the early stages by Lido De Biase in Bagluta, the Cougar Cat with Lamborghini engines. And we're now following the fleet as it runs east towards Hengistbury Head for the first time. Marco Capoferri out on the seaward side in Divi Prima. Classic battle here between Eduardo Poli in the monohull and Jean-Pierre Fruitier in the catamaran. The water out here should favour the Cat, but it's early and they're obviously taking no chances with their machinery or with their safety. Belabio in Baby Cressy, he's already sunk on 2 occasions.
La prima barca è rimasta sulla Costa Azzurra a Saint-Tropez.
It's still in Saint-Tropez on Costa Azzurra.
And how many meters of water was it sinking in?
200 meters.
Do you think that the race in Saint-Tropez should not have been started? Should it not have been run?
Crede che la corsa che hanno fatto a Saint-Tropez doveva essere fatta o no?
Absolutely no. Sure, but now is later. Adesso è tardi, no, ma penso sia molto tardi adesso. Che sia tardi dire di no adesso.
It's a bit late to say no now, isn't it?
Soltanto che essendo io un pilota professionista e trovandomi a fare questa gara ho voluto continuare.
He said as a professional driver finding himself there, he had to continue once it had started.
And here's John Davey in McCavity, and he's beginning to feel it. His is a short catamaran by comparison with the others. He's running a 36-foot Cougar, and in this sort of quartering swell, it won't work to his advantage.
Casiraghi in LS, perfectly tracking along now. He's got the advantage of surface drives on this boat. It keeps the boat very flat, allows him to run it very hard. Just flying, perfect cat weather out here.
Stefano Casiraghi, you have chosen to run a boat without the full cockpit covers. You are open in the boat. What is your thinking? I mean, why did you choose to go that way? Why do you do not have a plexiglass dome?
I think for the cockpit the problem is I don't like to have a seatbelt in the boat, because if you have a problem and the boat is upside down and you are unconscious, you are sure you are killed because you don't come out from the boat. And I think for have a cockpit you need to have a very safe boat, and the cockpit have to have air all the time, like in the plane, because the problem is if you have a hole in the boat, and you go down, you go with the boat. This is the big problem. I think it's you have to study a lot before to put in the cockpit.
One of the critical things in any race boat is if it turns over and traps its crew under it in the water. All the modern heritage of race boats run oxygen support to their crews. So if this boat goes over, each crew member reaches immediately for his oxygen mask and has his own life support system. Similarly, each of these 3 crew members has a 5 or 6 point lap harness. It's a single point release, and if they need to get out in a hurry, they can do so.
I want to do big race. Maybe I'm studying for the Cross the Atlantic next year, and to do a big race like I hope one day the race around England, and the big race like Miami, Nassau, but no more the European Championship.
Really quite interesting out here now, because you've got the biggest boat in the fleet, which is San Benedetto, a 50-foot monohull, and right alongside him and really flying is this little 32-foot boat of Michael Frode's, designed and developed himself in Scandinavia. He doesn't often come down into the main thrust of European racing, but when he does come down, everybody surely knows he's been here. He's the leading Class 2 boat, and he's lying something like 7th on the water at the moment. Really flying it out here. He's got Graham Stewart, local navigator, in with him. He's much better known as a Class 3 driver. He's designed and driven his own Class 3 boats on a number of occasions in World Championship events. And he's just flying this little yellow boat, Mercury Special. 4, 5, 6, 7 feet out of the water, but running very predictably. One of the hardest drivers on the circuit anywhere is Frode.
It's a yellow monohull. It has 3 Mercury E5 engines, about 320 horsepower each, and they do a speed around 7 to 8 knots at top speed.
You must be one of the few boats here that actually wouldn't mind if it was rough on Sunday.
I hope it will be very rough. I like it.
Really is quite remarkable how well Frode is doing. The much bigger Casaraghi catamaran LS is just biding his time and running back astern of him. I have to say that he looks as though he's having a much more comfortable ride in LS than Frode, but in terms of pure speed, Frode in his class is quite outstanding.
Now we're looking at Miss Off Limits, only Swiss entry here today, driven by our owner, Paul Chaillet. The boat's a 32-foot skater cat, and out here in the rough water, the comparisons with Frode are very obvious. They're both running Mercury 2.4 EFI outboards, but the cat's having a very uncomfortable ride and is going noticeably slower than the Swede and his monohull with the same length. Approaching the most westerly mark on the course at Swanage for the first time, the race order is Polly in SDA, Abati in Gancia de Gancia, Curtis's Reporter, Balabio in Baby Cressy, with Frode, the leading Class 2 boat, on the water fifth. Then Stefano Casaraghi in LS, Corbelli's 50-foot monohull San Benedetto, and Annabella. Back here in the smooth water under the lee of the cliffs, Curtis can use his power and the faster-running cat to better effect, and approaching the lap line, he blasts past Polly to take the lead.
So Curtis now takes the lead in Reporter. Polly and Statua in SDA being overtaken and passed and left now 200 yards, 300 yards astern. But Polly knows he doesn't have a problem, because if anybody can drive in the rough, it's Eduardo Polly. They're both running identical power units. Reporter and SDA have both the 12V Lamborghini engines.
Daniele Audetto, you are the competition manager of Lamborghini, and your front runner has been Steve Curtis. His performance this year has been very good, but he has had odd problems. What is your plan for development of that engine? What are your immediate plans for next year?
We have, I have to admit that Steve was very, very good, but was not lucky with the sea condition, because this year in the Mediterranean was quite rough. And for next year, the Lamborghini, the only thing we can do is to improve the existing 12-cylinder with a 4 valves head that will increase the power at about 10%. So from 800 horsepower, we'll step up 880 horsepower. We already tested the catamaran with the Polly team and DiBiase on the throttle, that from 110 miles move up at 118 miles. So we gain with the 80 horsepower around 8 miles. So it was really impressive. But I think will not be enough to beat Buzzi, if Buzzi will make this new catamaran that is under construction. So I think to be competitive with Buzzi, we should arrive at around 1,000 horsepower with our engine. That is maybe too difficult.
Well, just as we thought earlier, even with the wind backing to north of west, there's still enough of a sea running to make life very uncomfortable as the boats swing round the Shingles Bank and make their way down the Needles Channel. Of course, it'll be even worse for the cats. And even now, we're hearing that there may be some sort of problem with Assegai.
Control, go ahead. I will try and call relay to you 411 because we can hear him. Shall I try?
Okay.
Race boat 411, race boat 411, this is the race control, over.
We'll be keeping an eye on Assegai's problem, but for now we'll go straight back to John Walker in the air.
We're looking at the third boat in Class 2. It's the Hunton Gazelle, new 39-foot Hunton boat, launched only just a week ago. First race, based on a 39-foot cruiser hull, built in a very light Kevlar with a pair of 550 horsepower Sabres. Not looking terribly comfortable, looking a little light, but driving very sensibly.
We're a big monohull, and smooth conditions would favour the faster cats, but looking round me now, I think it's going to be a little bumpy, which might well suit us. But it's our first race in us, so we'll be looking to finish this week.
How much do you believe that racing spills over into the proliferation of good ideas in the actual cruiser designs that you sell to the public?
It's very good for making sure that things don't fall off. That's probably the most important thing. Making good, solid, sturdy boats where the trims and fittings stay in place even in rough conditions, although we probably go out racing in conditions that in your cruiser you'll be better off staying at home.
Yes, and here's final confirmation that the Allenbys have indeed hoisted their orange flag and formally retired Assegai.
Unfortunately, John Davey and Chris Peters in boat number 5-5 have obviously developed a problem. They've turned around, their helmets are off, they're running back very gently towards the Needles. Their race is very much run.
Very obviously, the conditions on this very long seaward leg of the course are now taking their toll, particularly among the cats. We haven't seen much of John Clark in this race so far. He seems to be going well enough, but he's well north of the rum line, presumably trying to take some advantage of any lee he can pick up. Yesterday, John talked to Clark about his new boat and the ways in which it differs from other racing cats.
Okay, unlike most people, we have a foot throttle, whereas the majority of boats historically have always had hand throttles and a separate driver. We're trying to do the whole thing here together. So that's to steer the boat, trim the boat, which is to trim the angle of attack for the propellers through the drive system, and also a foot throttle.
Now, why particularly have you gone this route? Why haven't you just accepted the norm? And what's special about this? What advantage do you think you gain from doing it all yourself?
Well, in my opinion, and it's contrary to many other people's opinion, I believe that the driver should also throttle the boat. Otherwise you have two minds and two nervous systems that are doing completely different things. And unless two individuals were driving together for a decade or more in the same craft, I don't believe that the two could be in coordination. Whereas one individual who's steering the boat, throttling the boat and trimming it, he knows in his mind exactly where it all should be going.
Oh, clearly Polly is now getting the bit between his teeth, really powering along.
Now, we've just heard that John Davey has made it safely back to Cougar's Yard on the Hamble, and we've got somebody there to meet him and Chris Peters as they come ashore. He must be very disappointed.
It went very well considering the conditions. We were fast at the start in the calmer areas. We stayed with the larger boats a lot longer than we thought we would do on the first lap, and made up speed again in the calmer conditions. And then we reached the Needles. It was really heavy, and we suffered some water over the top and some electrical problems. But generally speaking, it was really good, and we're very pleased with it. And we're quite happy that it's all together ready for the next race. We built the boat as a sprint boat for calmer conditions to improve our odds under the circumstances, and we have got the speed, and we just want the right weather now, that's all. We're very pleased with it. It's absolutely perfect, super.
So Cowes Torquay is a possibility?
If the weather's kind to us, yes.
Now Stature and Polly are really going for it. Just creaming away. Barty right alongside him. He's got a slightly better handling boat in the rough. Slightly heavier boat. Quite a large discrepancy in terms of horsepower. Barty's got something like 2,200 horsepower, whereas Polly and the SDA boat has got 1,600. So now, for the first time in this race, Bruno Abati and Tony Gambina in Gancia de Gancia have actually taken the lead. Polly snuck inside him there, took a tighter line. The two of them are running side by side, absolutely neck and neck again, right beside each other. Beautiful boat-to-boat racing. Very tight. It's going to be all about how they handle that long, rough leg. They're both capable of driving it. They're both capable of blowing each other off on the leg. If their machinery stays together, it'll just be how much skill, how much nerve they've got to carry them through. I should say the leaders have pulled up probably 4 miles, maybe 4.5 miles over Steve Curtis in Reporter. But he's run an intelligent race. There's no point in breaking it. He's much, much lighter now. He's burned his fuel away. He knows he's not going to get close to the 2 guys ahead of him unless they break. Any water that slows them down is going to slow him down more. Edoardo Poli and Franco Statu are now showing everything. They pulled out 3/4 of a mile over Abate. They're heading down to the southwest corner of the course in some really very difficult water. Bruno Abate is an experienced enough campaigner to know that there's no point in breaking anything or anybody. The crew just ducked there as they thought they were going to take a little bit over the top. They're running in probably the worst conditions of the whole race course now. Edoardo Poli, he's run an intelligent race, he's run a very tactical race. But more than anything else, he's had the right boat for the conditions today. Everything from this perfect calm to some extremely nasty rolling seas off the Needles.
Edoardo Poli, you have just won this Needles Trophy race. Just talk us through your race.
Sea conditions were very, I'd say, very good for us. We did a good first lap. We slowed down a little bit in the second lap. Bruno Abate caught up with us. We drove faster on the third lap, especially in the long stretch with head seas, and we managed to win, I think, with 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes on Bruno.
For the 1988 Needles Trophy race, he takes the flag. Edoardo Poli, driving STA, boat number 101.
Second overall in Class 1 goes to boat number 46, Gancia de Gancia, Bruno Abate and Tony Gambina. Very well done, Gancia de Gancia. That's the boat, number 1 Reporter, third in Class 1. Steve Curtis is the current Class 1 world champion. And first in Class 2, number 4, Mercury Special, Michael Froder, Sweden, Graham Stewart, Royal Motor Yacht Club.